Hello, happy Boxing Day. I hope that wherever you found yourself yesterday, you had a wonderful and blessed Christmas day. I'm just aware that we are once again in a season of uncertainty and perhaps difficulty. And my hope and my prayer is that wherever you are over this Christmas season and whatever is currently going on in your life, that you would know the hope and light that is Jesus Christ as we celebrate those events that happened thousands of years ago in Bethlehem, as we celebrate the day that Jesus was born. Today, Matt is finishing our series, The Coming King, and then we'll have a time of worship. Just a few notices from me, a few things that are coming up over the next few weeks. Next weekend, the 2nd of January, our first of 2022, can you believe it? We are going to be having our online service as usual, but our sites are also going to be doing lots of out and about walks around different places around Cardiff and beyond. If you go on our website, onto the What's On section, you can sign up to be part of one of those. And then in the evening on the 2nd, we will be having our evening service at Cardiff Central at the gate at 6 p.m. It'd be lovely to see you there. Now, I say all that, everything at the moment is subject to change, of course, so do check out our website, sign up to receive our emails if you don't get them, go to the contact section of our website if you don't currently hear from us at all. We will be letting you know of any changes. Yes, okay, I'll hand over to Matt.
Well, hi everyone, happy Boxing Day. I hope that you've had a lovely day yesterday. I hope you've been having a great Christmas so far. Now, my wife Alice, she absolutely loves Boxing Day. For her, it's just a day where, apparently in her childhood, it was always you just stay in your pyjamas. It's a day to enjoy your presents and just to eat all the leftover food. I seem to have less memories of Boxing Day like that, but perhaps I was all about Christmas Day. But one Boxing Day I do remember is 11 years ago. It was the first Christmas that after we had moved to Cardiff, and we were heading home on Boxing Day to see, to my family home to see my parents and my family. And we were heading down the M4, and just as we went past Lee Delamere Services, the petrol light came on. Now, it must have been kind of a real moment of festive optimism and cheer. We were like, oh, we'll be fine, we'll keep going, we'll get petrol later. Anyway, you can see where this is going. We ground to a halt somewhere just outside of Swindon. We ended up on the hard shoulder. It was pretty dark, it was pretty cold, and yeah, we didn't make it down for a second trimmings of turkey that day. Instead, we ended up on a long, slow trek back, being towed back to Cardiff. So that is not the best way to spend Boxing Day. So heed our lesson. If you're travelling anywhere today or in the next few days, make sure you fill up. And check your tyres as well. They always say check your tyres, don't they? So anyway, but that was our Boxing Day 11 years ago. But anyway, I hope you're doing well this Boxing Day. I know it's obviously another Christmas. These are kind of uncertain and unsettling times, but I do hope that you've been having a good Christmas period. And also, for me today, I'm just conscious that there's a lot of happiness, but there's also some sadness. Personally, myself and my family, we're remembering, sadly, this year we lost a very good family friend who passed away from coronavirus. And he was a really lovely, gentle, caring man. And we would regularly spend time, in fact, most Boxing Days, our family and his family would go for a Boxing Day walk. So I'm thinking of him today and his family. So it's the season, isn't it, where there's a lot of happiness and a lot of joy, but also some sadness and poignancy as well. And that's why we've been looking at Jesus this Christmas, because it's in him who we find all we need. And all that the Christmas story is about is that message of hope, but also someone who meets us where we're at. Let me start with this little bit of prose I found, which I think is just lovely. It simply says this: the cosmos shaper has come down to earth. Mary is counting his fingers and toes. And this is Jesus. This is who we're looking at this Christmas. The little, helpless, totally dependent baby, yet also the cosmos shaper, the one who changed and changes everything. And our theme this Christmas has been the coming King. Jesus, the Saviour of the world, the long-awaited Messiah, the one who fulfilled centuries' worth of prophecies. The baby born in miraculous, controversial, unglamorous circumstances. This is Jesus, the coming King. And Alice kicked off this series a few weeks back now, and she looked at Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Jesus, the coming King who knows us and fights for us and who is with us. And then James continued this series at our carol services. He looked at Jesus, the Wonderful Counselor, who we receive in awe and wonder. James read from that classic kind of Christmas passage in Isaiah 9. He read this, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." So that was our carol services just a few weeks back. And today what I want to do is I want to finish this series by looking at Jesus, the light of the world. Jesus, the light of the world, the one who overcomes the darkness. And what I want us to look at just briefly today is these three ideas. Firstly, we see that Jesus was the light of the world. Jesus was the light that was needed to come and overcome the darkness. Secondly, that Jesus is the light of the world. And then thirdly, that if Jesus is the light of the world, that we are then called to be children of the light, people who bring his light into this world. So to do that, what I want to do is to dive back into that Isaiah passage, Isaiah 9. And in verse 2, we read this. "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." And light is one of the most important images of the Christmas narrative. It's part of the Christmas miracle. The birth of Jesus is a transcendent moment. It's one of those moments where we see good overcoming evil and the light piercing the darkness. It's another one of those moments that we read throughout Scripture where we have a God who intervenes, we have a God who overcomes. Whether it's in the Old Testament where we see the Red Sea parted and the Israelites walking through it, whether it's the River Jordan that gets dried up, whether it's the giant Goliath slayed by a small shepherd boy and his catapult. It's just another one of those moments of God the intervener, God who always overcomes. And what we celebrate at Christmas is the God who overcomes by becoming God incarnate, flesh and blood, walking this earth, moving into the neighborhood, dwelling amongst us. God's intervention at Christmas is like the light breaking through like the sun breaking through the clouds on a cloudy day. As it says in that Isaiah passage, "On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." So why was Jesus this great light? Why was he needed? Well, first we need to look at why there is darkness and why the light was needed to overcome the darkness. What do we mean by darkness? Well, I'll tell you what we don't mean. Just a very silly example. In my house, our upstairs bathroom, we have a real nuisance. Our bathroom light causes me great consternation. It's one of those lights, you turn it on, and then suddenly, 2 or 3 minutes after you turn it on, it's one of those pull-down, click-on lights. For no reason at all, it just seems to just click off, and the light goes off. Now, this can be a real pain. Without going into all the details, you don't need them. There is both a toilet and a shower in this bathroom. So you can imagine that if this light just unexpectedly and without warning turns off, it can be quite inconvenient. Now that is just inconvenient, silly, comical darkness, if you like. But real darkness, real physical and emotional darkness is something quite different. Just darkness is actually a really quite a troubling place. It's a place of fear. It can be where you can feel very anxious and scared in darkness. You can feel very confused and disorientated. It can be a place of confusion. It can also be a place where you feel very lonely, where you're not sure if anyone is with you. And it can also be a place of despair. Darkness can be a place without hope. It can feel like there is nowhere to go and nothing to move on to. And darkness, in a biblical sense, isn't just a physical reality of not being able to see anything. It can also refer to a spiritual and emotional reality. In the times of Isaiah, where the words were prophesied about Jesus coming, that was a time of darkness for the people of Israel. They were split in two. Many of them were in exile. The nation had been kind of polarized. Many were facing famine and hardship. And many people had started to follow other false gods. So there was a real spiritual and emotional darkness at the time. That was very similar to the world into which Jesus was born. 2,000 years ago, at that time, the Jewish people were again scattered. They were very they had been, what's the word? They were all kind of arguing with each other. They'd broken down into lots of different kind of sects and kind of groups. They were waiting for something to change. They were living under the oppression of the Roman Empire. And they were looking for this Messiah who they thought would be a political or military leader to rise up and kind of move the dial for them. And at that time, John, who was one of Jesus' disciples, he wrote one of the gospel accounts of Jesus' life. And he was writing in that time of darkness. And the words he wrote about the birth of Jesus have a remarkable similarity to the words of Isaiah. This is what we read in John chapter 1, starting at verse 4. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. So that was that's John writing about when Jesus came into the world, the light that had arrived in this time of darkness. And it's not hard to suggest we live in a time of darkness at the moment, whether it's the kind of all the fear, the anxiety, the uncertainty of living in a pandemic or the climate emergency. There is definitely a sense of that fear and confusion. At times we feel very isolated and lonely. We live in a very polarized society. So there is sadly a darkness in our time as well. It's these moments we realize that it is only Jesus who can speak into and overcome that fear, that confusion, that loneliness, that despair. Perhaps you feel that at the moment. Perhaps, sadly, this Christmas time, you realize you're kind of facing some darkness in your life at the moment. Well, let Jesus kind of speak into that. If there is a fear in your life, let his perfect love cast out all fear. If there is a confusion, then know that Jesus is your North Star. He will always light the way. We can fix our eyes on him as the author and perfecter of our faith. He will always make our paths straight and clear. Perhaps there's a loneliness in your life at the moment. Turn to the God who moved into our hearts and moved into our world. The one who stepped down into our mess and our brokenness. God incarnate, Emmanuel, God is with us. And as we say yes to Jesus, or we say yes again to Jesus, remember that we have the gift of the Holy Spirit that comes to live in us and work through us. We are not alone because he is always with us. If there is a darkness which causes despair and a loss of hope in your life, look to the coming King who will come again. Jesus who will put all things right in the end, the one who defeated the grave and in whose resurrection power we will rise again too. Turn to the one who we know we have a future eternity with. There will be no more tears, no more loss, no more suffering because of Jesus. So this is why we turn to Jesus. He is the one who overcame the darkness. If there is darkness right now, whether you feel it in your own life or you see it around you, know that Jesus was the light, the great light that dawned. Let him dawn again in your life. So if Jesus was the light to come and the light that would dawn, secondly, he was also the light of the world. He is the light of the world. That's what he said about himself. In John's Gospel, going back into John's Gospel, in chapter 8, Jesus says this. He said this to his followers. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Jesus said this is one of his I am statements. I am the light of the world. What do we do with that light? For all of us, there comes a choice, isn't there? We can either kind of step towards the light or we can step away from it. Stepping into the light is a moment where we can feel quite exposed. It can kind of, we step into it and it kind of reveals our sin and our brokenness. But it's in that moment that we can also receive the love and grace of Jesus. We step into his forgiveness and his freedom. For others, it's that moment where, actually, when they see the light that is in Jesus, they want to hide. They'd rather stay in the shadows. We all have that moment where we have a choice. Do we step towards the light or do we hide away from it? And in some senses, it's easier to stay in the shadow. It feels easier. It's an act of self-preservation. It's where we say we don't want to deal with our stuff. But we then miss out on the light. When I was a teenager, I was about 15 or 16. I think I was in about year 10 or 11. I can't quite remember. But I went on a school trip. This was before I lived in Wales, but the school trip, it was a residential trip. And we went to the Brecon Beacons. another trip down the M4, going in the other direction. And we had a brilliant time. It was one of those trips where we did hiking and we did all sorts of outdoor expeditions. And one of the afternoons, excuse me, I remember we went caving, which was a new experience for me. I absolutely loved it. I don't have any photos of it. This image here might just give you a kind of idea of what it was like. But it was all underground, and it was kind of crawling and scrambling through things and lots of tight tunnels and passageways. And I absolutely loved it. I had such a good time, and I didn't really want it to end. However, I do remember a moment right towards the end of the afternoon. We had an instructor who had guided us through the whole kind of expedition. And for the very final section, he asked me to go first. And he told me what to do and where to go. We basically had to kind of go through this final passageway, kind of scramble up. And he said, you'll come back to the kind of entrance and exit to the cave. So I went in first. And off I went, slithering up this passageway. And it got incredibly tight and very dark. I had a head torch on, but even with the torch, it just felt very, very kind of dark and very tight. And I had no one ahead of me because I was the first in the group. What's more, it got too tight. I couldn't turn around at all. So I was kind of stuck where I was. And I remember thinking, I can't hear anyone behind me. And I couldn't look around either because it was too tight. So I didn't know if there was anyone behind me. And I had this moment where I suddenly felt very alone, and I just didn't know what to do. And I have to admit, I did feel quite scared. Even though I'd been having such a good time, suddenly the fear had kicked in. And I had that moment of what do I do? What do I do? Do I just stay put and wait for someone to catch me up? Or do I just kind of get my head down and crack on? And the adrenaline kicked in, and I just suddenly went into I was on a mission. I went into overdrive, and all I wanted to do was get to the top. So I went really fast. I scrambled even faster. I picked up plenty of bumps and bruises on the way, but I just couldn't be stopped. And I saw, as I came towards the top, I did see that light, which was at the kind of exit of the cave. And the sense of both relief and joy was immense when I got there. And afterwards I felt a little bashful about it, and I thought, I was probably a bit silly. But in that moment, the emotions were very strong. And when I saw that light, I just couldn't get to it quick enough. That's, I think, how we need to be with Jesus. When we see him as the coming King, the light of the world, we can't get into that light fast enough. It's where we're meant to be. When we feel surrounded, when we feel stuck, when we don't know where to turn, a great light has dawned upon us. And let's make sure we get into that light, and as we say yes to him. Again, John, one of the disciples, captures it best. He says this in his letter in the New Testament. This is 1 John 1. God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. If we claim to have fellowship with him and yet walk in the darkness, we lie and do not live out the truth. But if we walk in the light, as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. And the blood of Jesus, his Son, purifies us from all our sin. So that is the call on our lives. It is to walk in the light as he, Jesus, is in the light. So we've seen already that Jesus was the light to come, the great light to dawn. We've seen that Jesus is the light, and that light is what we are to walk in as he is in the light. And then finally, what I want to talk about today is, what do we do with this? What do we do with all this? If the light has come and has overcome the darkness, and we are to be people who live in the light of Jesus, then finally, we are also called to be people who bring the light of Jesus. Let's go back into John's Gospel one more time. This is chapter 12, where Jesus says to his followers, this is chapter 12, verse 36. Jesus said, "Believe in the light while you have the light, so that you may become children of light." Similarly, Jesus said this in Matthew's Gospel, slightly different way of saying it. He taught this, chapter 5, verse 14. "You are the light of the world. A town on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So to follow the coming King, to follow Jesus, we must become his children who carry his light into the world around us. We've been given this as a mandate. Bring light that overcomes the darkness. Do you want to see a world in which the light has overcome the darkness? If you want to see what that looks like, look at the life of Jesus. Look at his ministry, look at his teaching, look at his miracles. Look at all the people suffering who were healed. Look at the lost people who just felt so lost in their lives, who found a sense of purpose and calling. Look at the people in authority who were oppressing others, who were confounded by Jesus, did not know what to do with him. Look at the people in society who no one else would associate themselves with. And yet Jesus spent time with them. He ate with them. He turned their lives around. He transformed them. Jesus brought life wherever he went. He even brought life to the grave. So he was the ultimate light and life bringer. He was always bringing light that overcame darkness. And our lives, as people who are called to live like Jesus, are to look the same. To live a life like Jesus is to live a life where light overcomes darkness. It's a life where we bring light and life to our city, to our neighbourhoods, to our workplaces, to nurseries, to schools, colleges, universities, care homes, hospitals, wherever you're at. Wherever we abide, Jesus wants to abide in us. It's as if he would be living the life for us that he would lead if it was him living it. It will be full of light. Let me give just one small example of this. Last Christmas, so a year ago now, I was part of a team. As a whole church, we were doing lots of projects across the city. And part of the team I was part of, we delivered a whole load of food parcels to one of the local primary schools, because we knew that there was a lot of vulnerable families there struggling with food poverty. And I remember at the time, it was like 3 van loads worth of all these shopping bags and crates. And I actually apologised to the teaching staff as we left, because the reception foyer to the school looked more like a supermarket aisle than a reception foyer. It was just piled so high, and I remember thinking it was actually legitimately like a health and safety hazard. I was worried that they wouldn't be able to get in and out of the school, but the teaching staff wouldn't hear anything of it. But I left thinking, oh dear, we've actually given too much. The very next day I had a message from, I think it was from the deputy head, saying thank you, but also to say that all of the food had gone. And at first I was like, oh, that's great. And then it quite quickly dawned on me. I was like, well, actually, that's quite something. All that food, and yet there was so much need that it had gone very, very quickly. And what we were doing was just a drop in the ocean. Now, we continued to do some food parcels over the next few months to help these families. But it became clear quite quickly that we needed something more. And God birthed a whole new idea, which was something that would be much more sustainable moving forward. How is it that we can make a difference? So in the last couple of months, and we've launched, many of you know this, we've launched the Gate Food Co-op. It's working in partnership with FareShare. Many of you will know that name because of the work of Marcus Rashford. But basically what the Food Co-op is, it's just a weekly pop-up shop in the Gate. And it is, it's just an amazing thing. It's very kind of simple. Families can come if they're struggling. They pay just a few pounds, and for that they get their whole weekly shop. And it's just an absolute joy to see families who come in who perhaps are struggling, who then leave shopping bags full of food and groceries for the week. And our heart for this is they would leave full tummies and full hearts. That's our heart and our prayer for the Food Co-op. It's just the love of God expressed in a very simple and practical way. Now that is just one project, but it is just every week a moment of the light overcoming the darkness. It's us as the children of God bringing his light and his life to this part of the city. It's a moment where you think, well, things can change. And this is, in the last year or so as a church, we've really looked more deeply at some of the big issues of our time. We've looked at, say, racial injustice or the climate emergency and COP26. Change can come in these areas. The tendency would be to despair and think that all is lost. But actually change can come, and change will come if we live like children of the light. The Apostle Paul in his letter to one of the early churches, exhorted the early church to exactly this. He said, this is Ephesians 5, verse 8. He says this, "For you were once in darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light." So let me leave you with this on this Boxing Day. As we head into the new year, I think the question perhaps for us as a people or for us as a church is, how are we going to bring light next year? How is it for you perhaps personally? Maybe that's something you want to ask God. Maybe you want to try to meditate on that this week. Let me read that verse to you again from Ephesians. "For you were once in darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light." So how are we going to bring that light? I could give ideas, but actually I almost don't want to do that. What I'd love to encourage you to do is just to let God speak to you about that in the next few days and weeks. How is it that you can bring light? What is the specific? Is it perhaps a specific thing, a specific calling, a specific project, whatever it is? But let's do that in a way that we know that the light has overcome the darkness. Jesus was the light to come, the great light that dawned. Jesus is the light of the world, and we are called to bring that light to those around us. So this Boxing Day, let's once again, as we have been all this Christmas, welcome the coming King. Let us be a people who welcome him into our hearts and show his love to the world around us. I hope that you continue to have a wonderful Christmas and a safe Christmas over the next few days, and we'll see you in the new year.
He is the Lord and he reigns on high. He is. We worship the Lord. He reigns on high. And on our praise. We've come to join the song sung long before our lives, to raise a voice alone, heaven and earth alike. We've seen your faithfulness, your mercy without end, and a King who bled and died, a God who sacrificed, will be enthroned upon praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice to heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. Through this life we lead, and all to eternity, our endless praise will cry, Jesus be glorified. And unto this life we lead, and unto eternity, deserve it all, the highest praises, Lord of all. You deserve it all, the highest praises, Lord of all. Oh, highest praises, Lord of all. Oh, highest praises, Lord of all. Oh, highest praises, Lord of all. Highest praises, you are worthy, Lord of all. Be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And to you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice to heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. Be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And unto you, slain and risen King, we lift our voice to heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. Oh, your majesty, I can but bow. I lay my all before you now. In royal robes I don't deserve. I live to serve your majesty, your royal majesty. Robed in glory, the highest name of all. That at your name every knee should bow and tongue confess you are Lord, to the glory of God. Oh, be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice to heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. Be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice to heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. Be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice to heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. again from your arms, with hope in my heart, in loving surrender. He said, I'll shut out the noise, awake to your voice, tune into your whispers. I'll reset again from your arms, with a hope in my heart, in loving surrender. He said, I'll shut out the noise, awake to your voice, tune into your whisper. I know that you are good. I know that you are kind. I know that you are love. And I know that you love me. I know that you are good. I know that you are kind. I know that you are love. I know that you love me. So I will again from your arms, with hope in my heart, in loving surrender. I'll shut out the noise, awake to your voice, tune into your whispers. 'Cause I know your words are true. I know you say do not fear. I know you say I am free. I know I am free indeed. And I will reset again from your arms, with a hope in my heart, in loving surrender. Reset, I'll shut out the noise, awake to your voice, tune into your whispers. I'll reset again from your arms, with a hope in my heart, in loving surrender. Reset, I'll shut out the noise, awake to your voice, tune into your whispers. I'll tune into your whispers. All I want is nothing more than all you are, and all your heart, and all you want is nothing more than all I am, in loving surrender. All I want is nothing more than all you are, and all your heart, and all you want is nothing more than all I am, in loving surrender. All I want is nothing more than all you are, and all your heart, and all you want is nothing more than all I am, in loving surrender. All you want is nothing more than all you are, and all your heart, and all you want is nothing more than all I am, in loving surrender. All I want is nothing more than all you are, and all your heart, and all you want is nothing more than all I am. In loving surrender, all I want is nothing more than all you are, and all your heart, and all you want is nothing more than all you want. In loving surrender, in loving surrender, I'll be completely surrendered. And I will reset again from your arms with hope in my heart. In loving surrender, reset. I'll shut out the noise, awake to your voice, tune into your whispers. Reset again from your arms with hope in my heart. In loving surrender, reset. I'll shut out the noise, awake to your voice, tune into your whispers. I'll tune into your whispers. I'll tune into your whispers. Cause you're all I want. You're all I've ever needed. You're all I want. Help me know you are near. You're all I want. You're all I've ever needed. You're all I want. Help me know you are near. You're all I want. You're